The moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. Let's talk about cynicism here for a minute. Here's a mail from a viewer. He writes, Hey Perch, I listen to you, Meyer, and Wes for comic book news and content, and I've heard you all at some point refer to things like Black Batman as a cynical play. Is the same true of the writers? By the way, just as an interjection, I don't know that I would describe Jace Fox as necessarily cynical. I would describe it as, um, I kind of, destined to fail to some extent, maybe is a better way to put it. I mean, just it's set up to fail. I think that's how I would describe a lot of these efforts is, and you could, maybe that's some cynicism here, but they're trying to do something, but they're not doing enough of it to actually ensure their success. I know this drives people crazy. I did this video at some point around, the consultant me versus the fan me. The fan me is not a fan of the Jace Fox Batman story, but if I'm being honest, I'm barely a fan of just regular Batman most of the time. That's just I like I like. There's been some amazing Batman stories. Batman the Cult springs to mind, and there's definitely some good stuff. But Batman's not my favorite character, and so if we're going to have a legacy character based off of not my favorite character, I mean, you're going uphill for me. It's unlikely you're going to do that. A character could be black, Asian, it could be ignored from the Green Lantern Corps, and that's not really going to change my answer here. But anyway, that's kind of how I feel about that. The consultant in me says, I mean, you can make anything work, but you have to do the right steps. You have to set it up for success. And the Jace Fox Batman, just the way they did the same thing with Captain Marvel. When you do like, I am Batman, or I am a powerful, popular hero, like that, what the problem is, almost everyone who reads that just naturally wants to argue with it. That's how it's kind of human nature. You look at something like that and you're like, well, you can't tell me what to do. And then you're off again. You're off on the wrong track. You're off trying to fight the fans, and it's just you can't win in that model. What you need to do is kind of bring the fans along on a journey, get the customers invested in something, not try and have some kind of debate with them over the product that you're trying to sell to them. But anyway, point taken. Sorry, got off track. Is this same true of the writers? You wrote. When you look at who, when you look at who CG were against in 2017, 2018, it does feel like those still are the ones who check the most boxes for as little pay as possible. We pick on Vita because it's accurate. Non-binary, queer, black, all in one, and she seems to take, and they, I'm going to try and respect what's said. I do my effort, and they seem to take the bulk of, I guess, woke work. I hate that term too. Here's a question I'd love to ask Vita in the fantasy interview that will never happen because Vita would never come onto the show. Although I would I would interview Vita, and I would absolutely I would appreciate the moment where my poor brain is trying to struggle around the pronouns, and Vita just he yells at me. I that would be a fun moment for me. I know, sounds weird, but I would ask Vita this question: like, does Vita want to write this content? Does Vita want to do what Vita's doing? Or if somebody said, "Hey, Vita, you are," and not even like if you ask anybody, one of the more up and coming or lower writers in the company, if you ask them like, "Hey, would you like to be the new writer for Batman?" I'm sure many people everybody's going to be like, "Yeah, absolutely. That's a high selling book. That works good for my career." They're going to do that. If you ask Vita, "Would you write Batman?" I'm sure Vita would be like, "Yeah, of course." So take it down a notch, like not like a known hit, but if you went into Vita and you said, "Hey, do you want to write this kind of Nubia, mini series here? Because Nubia's black, you're black, and like, would you like to do that? Or alternatively, would you like to write Superman? You could be the new writer for Superman." My suspicion is that a lot of the editors would go, "Well, Vita should write Nubia because it's both black and brown." She talks about they talk about black and brown character. That's what they should write. And my guess is Vito would say, "Yeah, I don't know, like put me on Superman. Hell yes, I'll write Superman." That's just speculation on my part. That I think that there is a huge. Well, anyway, let's go to the rest of your mail. I think there's this huge mismatch between kind of what people are trying to do, what they want to do, etc. All right, so we continue with the mail. The mail says, "Are these people really hired for their characteristics? That might explain why no one expects a 36 issue run from one of these creators and why they don't care not to spoil their work. It is cynical and it does seem shitty on their part." I think by there you mean the publisher. At some point, you're just subsidizing people who will never be independently successful in the industry the way a Jeff Johns, Todd McFarlane, or Liam Sharp is. I like that Liam Sharp's being dropped into like the Hall of Legends. Liam Sharp's a great guy. And when that subsidy disappears, these creators will be left in the lurch, not understanding why work is suddenly drying up. Meanwhile, they could be off building a career somewhere else. I think that's a real powerful paragraph, and I think there's a lot of truth to that, which is, and it's what people's motivations are. So first off, I don't believe, and I know other YouTubers do, I don't believe that a editor sits in a chair somewhere and goes, I need to hire a black, disabled, queer, all these different pieces. Somebody, by the way, sent me a mail saying queer is very offensive as a term. I thought we were I thought that was the term people wanted, but if that is the case, please. I think this also made different regions different things, but to my understanding, I thought this was the term. But we can look. I like the pronouns. You tell me, and I'll go with what you want. That's been my policy. They'll continue to be my policy. I'll forget a lot, but I will make that effort and I will try. That's what what is again mufflers in Texas? There's just they don't exist apparently. Anyway, um, where was I? No, but I think there's a cruelty there because I think I don't think people are sitting down with a checkbox list going, I need to get as many of these as possible, and that's going to be my strategy here. Unfortunately, I think it's a little bit more basic and simple than that, which is the editor's like, hey, who's in my friends list? Oh, here's 4 people. We worked at a comic shop together once. I'm just going to get all 4 of those people. To me, it's more nepotistic than working a diversity checklist. That's my observation. It's very much that. It's very much I'm just going to hire my friends, and I'm going to keep hiring my friends, and do my friends fit this title? No, but I think what happens after the friends come in the door is they immediately the company's like they're obsessed with this. Well, we're doing a comic with a Native American. Do you have any Native American friends? You do. Okay, we'll get the Native American on the Native American, and get the black person on the black person title, and get the the queer person on the queer person title. Like that's how you do it. I obviously I do a lot of shows and interviews and things with Joe Corallo. He's a friend. I think he's a good writer. I enjoy working with him. I think that if you were to ask, if you're DC and you're about to hire Joe to come in and write or edit books, Joe's intensely deep knowledge for Legion of Superheroes, for Batman, for a lot of these characters. I mean, I'm fully willing to bet Joe is better informed, knows these things, knows the storyline, knows a lot of stuff way better than many people inside the company. If Joe came into DC and they're like, all right, we need to what's the gay title we can put him on? What a effing waste that would be of Joe. Like, put him on Legion of Superheroes. You would be insane not to put Joe on Legion of Superheroes. That's where he belongs. I mean, the guy. But so anyway, that's the challenge. Is I do think once the person comes in, they immediately try and match them up with whatever the general demographics are of the character they're writing. And I think once they've done that, yeah, it's very cynical, and and to the point, it doesn't. No one expects a big run. They don't get a big run. They let that experiment play out for about 3 years. Character, the writer is often pigeonholed with a character they don't know or really like. I remember some Newsarama article where Mags Saggio talked about Connor Kent Superboy being the character that Mags liked, and that's what she really wanted to write. But obviously, there's not a Mags Superboy title out there. And so, do we have a case where you get a creator who really knows the character, likes the character, has an affinity for something, has an idea, but they're like, well, but we need to find a trans character for Mags because trans. So you're basically taking a writer and putting them on a book that the writer doesn't have as much of a feeling for, maybe doesn't know the character, doesn't have as good ideas for. It's going to show up in the writing. It doesn't sell well. The book gets canceled. That creator gets rolled back out onto the street, and we repeat this cycle with the next group of people that are coming in the door. And that is incredibly cynical. That sets everybody up for failure. I have no idea if Vita would write an amazing comic book featuring Superman or not. All I do know is Vita's very early work was pretty good. Like I enjoyed a lot of Vita's early work. I thought it was decent. I have not enjoyed Vita on New Mutants as a fan. I did not enjoy that title. It's not a good title. It's kind of wrapped up in the same talky silliness that is the X-Men in general, and that entire Krakoa era drives me insane. So I don't like that era. So I can't blame all that on Vita. I get that is the entire pitch is bad for me. But I do look at it every now and then and go, and when I say there's some good things, there were dozens and dozens of titles that Vita wrote. I'm like, oh man, it's great. But the very first pieces were like, oh, this is a decent story, compelling. And so I'm sitting and going, okay, so did Vita get worse? Because I like the work and now I don't like the work. So did something happen that made the work bad? Or is Vita on a character Vita doesn't really care about but wants to work because so when Marvel comes knocking, you answer the door? Is that the problem? Or what? Or what is going on there? So are we even? So the people that we complain about a lot, that you hear on the internet, like constantly, people huffing and puffing, like, I have the worst run ever, I have the worst ever, ruined all the characters. I mean, are we even getting to see them at their best? Maybe some of the writers don't have a best. That's possible. But again, with the consultant hat on, and for that matter, with the fan hat on as well, I would like to see the best possible efforts given. If we're going to go out, we're going to make comics, we're going to make these stories, then I would like to see, classically, put our best foot forward. Best foot forward is, if there's somebody who, knows if you've got a writer and it's Joe Crollo, and you're like, all right, what do we put Joe on? Do we put Joe on Legion of Superheroes? He seems to know Legion of Superheroes very well. He knows all the characters. He has great story ideas for them. He's got lots of ideas here. Or we we put Joe on this brand new character we created because we think that maybe it fits Joe a little bit. It fits Joe because it fits Joe. What's going to be more successful? What's Joe going to do a better job at? He's going to do a better job at Legion of Superheroes. I'm curious. I'm legitimately curious. Again, if I was to interview Vita, what is Vita like? What are they interested in? What character is Vita into? Is it not what character are they currently writing that they like the best, but what character would they be into? And is that character being offered to Vita, or at least is anybody taking that into account anywhere? By the way, if you're getting hung up on, but I don't like Vita, meaning you, the listener, if you don't like Vita, then replace with anyone. Let's say Chris Claremont. Obviously, they got Chris Claremont into X-Men. He seemed to like it. It worked. But what if they had gone to Chris Claremont and said, you know what, I know you like X-Men, you have all these ideas, but you're going to be better for this Alf comic book that we're doing. Chris Claremont's Alf. That's what we're going to do. What if they had done that? I'll bet you that title, Chris Claremont would have failed at that book. Because, it doesn't work. John Byrne, who I think is great, love John Byrne, like a lot of his stuff, like his Fantastic Four, like his time on X-Men. I liked his Namor, I liked his She-Hulk. Over at DC, I liked his Superman. What if they put John, well, not what if, we don't need to speculate about this. They put John Byrne on Doom Patrol at one point. It wasn't a good book. I didn't like John Byrne's Doom Patrol. It was not a good fit. Felt clunky. It didn't match him. So why what are we doing? I think that it's worth dealing with speculating about this stuff, because if you take a writer and you put them on the wrong stuff, I mean, you're going to get bad results. Anyway, sorry, there's still more to the mail, by the way. There's still one more paragraph. I got to. So last paragraph goes, our identity points a favor in their work, or are we just too pessimistic to see the hidden talent and impending success of Vita, Danny Lore, and Cena Grace? Or is it something else entirely? By the way, Cena Grace was an editor for The Walking Dead during one of its most popular, strong growth times. He was part of that success. Now, obviously, he wasn't writing the book; he was an editor. But Kirkman was on the book. But Cena Grace was involved in a very successful book, and he contributed to that success. Some part of that success does get attributed to Cena Grace. He goes to Marvel. They put Cena Grace on Iceman. Did Cena Grace want to write Iceman? Maybe he did. I don't know. But would a smarter choice have been to say, hey, you worked on this hugely popular Walking Dead book. We're going to do another Marvel Zombies series. Maybe we should put you on. Maybe your first writing gig while you're getting used to Marvel should be, Marvel Zombies, and you could take some of what you've kind of learned and did with Walking Dead, and you can put it in over here. Like, would that seems like that would have been a good idea. Instead, they put him on Iceman, a character that cannot sell, regardless of. I mean, they've tried with Iceman a few times before. That Iceman is not a sellable solo character. They put him on that, it fails. It's like, well, I guess he doesn't belong here. Why'd they put him on Iceman? Because Iceman's gay. Cena Grace is gay. Match up the gays. There you go. That's very cynical. It's just bad business practices. I don't know if Cena Grace Marvel Zombies book would have worked, but hell, that would have been a far better shot at success in my book than putting him on a character that does not sell historically and never has. I mean, am I wrong here? Anyway. So finally, the mail says, I know I may come off like a dick here, but my perspective is currently everyone is in a bad position. Fans are scared, so fans don't like the work of these creators. The editors are scared to criticize their work. The publisher is underperforming these titles, and the creators' careers are a house of cards that depends on how their employers staying the exact same 10 years from now, which they will not. You're right. The only part I disagree with that last bit is the editors are scared of saying anything to the creators. Well, I'm sure that's somewhat true. I've heard this on other videos. I think that is it's giving a way more credit than is deserved to the editors of, like, man, these editors know what the right thing to do is, but they just they're afraid of being called racist, so they don't say anything. Yeah, except these editors, these racist editors. No, I'm just kidding. These editors hired these people in the first place. They went out of their way to solicit, find, and bring in, these people. So they picked this. So to say that, the editors also have a lack of knowledge. The editors are making the choice we've been talking about in this video to go down this path. And so I don't think it's like, it gets portrayed like Vita is such a out of control, rampaging, angry person that Jordan White wouldn't dare to say anything negative to Vita because she'd take his head off and he'd be attacked as a white male. I don't think so. Again, Jordan put Vita on this. And, presumably the job of an editor is to say, hey, what are your ideas? What are you interested in? What do you like? Now, again, maybe we find out that Vita's like, I am living my best life. I'm writing the title I want. This is exactly how I want it. But I have a really hard time believing that from some of the comments that were being made and everything else. This is not somebody who's living their best life. This is not somebody who's doing the title of their dreams. This is somebody who got put on a book. And I think the clue is in, what's been said in interviews, which is like, well, Vita writes great kids, and New Mutants are sort of kids, so put the one with the other, and there you go. Which is bad. That's bad editorial. Look, I do think it's in a very cynical, very tough spot. I think all these things are factors. I don't think it's as clean as just one simple answer. I know that's, death for YouTube. The YouTube needs to be very simple. Woke creator killing comics, death at 11. That's what YouTube really wants, and some people have mastered that algorithm. I put a little punchy thumbnail of me yelling at a table while pounding my fist, and that's what works. But I mean, these things are all complicated. They all work together to collectively create a big pile of shit, and that's again, it's irreversible. I think if you want to really solve a lot of this stuff, you need to start putting creators on books that they actually want to write, that make sense, that fit what they do. That would be a good start. You need to set people up for success by pushing titles that have a chance, and stop trying to put the brand new unknown writer. I mean, there's another person I'd love to interview at some point, Cena Grace. And because I do think there's parts that he did, there's parts that Editorial did, there's a little bit of that for everybody. But the the whole aspect of Iceman that is the most unsurprising thing of all is to say, hey, we're going to take this new writer who's new to Marvel, hasn't done much of anything. We're going to pair that writer with an artist that is also fairly unknown, not a major artist at Marvel. We're going to put them on a title with a character that just had one of the most angrily controversial character changes in the last 50 years. And then we're going to launch a solo book of a character that has never carried a solo title successfully. Even in the heydays in the 80s, when the newsstand was going on, that title couldn't get to 100,000 copies when everything got. I mean, the aforementioned Alf got 100,000 copies. And oh my God, can you believe this title didn't work? I mean, come on. Everybody saw that coming a mile away. There was nothing that was dead on arrival for every single one of those reasons. And no, it wasn't a good book. I mean, I didn't enjoy that title. But for that matter, it didn't feel like Cena Grace was enjoying that title either. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, it's a complicated topic, but thank you for the mail, and got to ramble for a while there. Longer video. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and thanks for listening.